You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, episode 168.
A bunch of dudes get together at a hunting camp somewhere at an outfitter, and you go out and you hunt for the day, and then you come back and they give you some really good grub, and then they light a campfire, and then everybody sits by the campfire, and then they pass around a bottle of booze. And that's when, I realized that there was a huge opportunity that was being missed here. I've been sober for about 7 years now. That's an important part of what's been, I think, what's led to my individual success.
Change Your POV Podcast Network is dedicated to helping veterans become just as successful out of uniform as they were when they were in. Our guest this week is no stranger to adversity or hardship. He also doesn't know how to give up. Former United States Marine Corps Scout Sniper, entrepreneur, and current Chief Operations Officer for Hope for the Warriors. Responsible for everything from keeping a pulse on the organization's strategic growth plans to implementing new processes and approaches to achieve them. He started out at Hope for the Warriors as a director of outdoor adventures, overseeing outdoor programs providing veterans and service members with therapeutic activities involving hunting, fishing, kayaking, whitewater rafting, and much more. Let's welcome this week's guest, Sharon. Hello, folks. Welcome to Change Your POV Podcast. I am your host, Eddie Lazary.
And I'm Bennett Tanton.
And today we have the pleasure to sit down with Sharon. And this guy, so Bennett's told me some stories. And, of course, they're all Marine Corps stories, and much of which I can't really understand and or translate for you. But, so Chris is very involved in the veteran community. And we brought him on the show to talk about everything that he's got going on, including Hope for the Warriors. And this month, of course, is April, and everything that we're talking about this month has to do with execution. And folks, if anyone knows how to execute, Chris has figured it out. So I brought him on the show so we could talk about this idea of execution, why so many people struggle with it, and what he's done to be able to overcome it. Welcome to the show, Chris. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem. So could you go back and kind of briefly share with the listening audience, from in your own words, kind of your story, where you come from, what are you about, a little bit of your background, military experience, and you getting out, and kind of how you got into what you're doing today?
Sure. I grew up in a little town in Wisconsin called Watertown. Went to high school there. I think like a lot of guys that end up in the infantry in the Marine Corps, I was not necessarily a stellar student per se. More interested in the social aspect of school than the actual academic aspect of it. But I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18. Ended up in Camp Lejeune in 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines in 1999. Did 2 enlistments. During my first enlistment, made my way from the infantry inside of the infantry, but from a rifle company into a scout sniper platoon. Went to school, eventually graduated. And actually, I failed out of sniper school the first time and went back a second time and graduated. And that's we'll come back to that later, but it was a very important lesson that I learned there. And then went to Iraq and Afghanistan, came back from Afghanistan. I got selected to teach at the sniper school here in Quantico, Virginia. I did one tour here, and towards the end of my enlistment, I actually met a girl out in town, a lady out in town, and she owned a bar, or she was getting ready to buy a bar. So she called me at the schoolhouse one day and said, "Hey, thinking about buying this bar that I've been the manager of. What do you think?" And so I'm a 25-year-old Marine. And at the time, really the only thing I did was go to work and then go to the bar. And so I thought it was a great idea. So we got married, and shortly thereafter, I got out of the Marine Corps and went to work for L3 Communications, big defense contracting firm, work in Marine Corps sniper programs specifically. Did that for about a year, got bored out of my skull, and went and worked with a small defense contracting company down in North Carolina outside of Camp Lejeune. I was there for a few months, and I won't get into the gory details of that, but after a few months, I realized, you know what, I can do this on my own. I don't need to work for somebody else. And there were I had to work inside of an organization that had a value system that I created. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of buddies of mine and I decided, hey, what the hell, we'll start our own company. So we did. I came back up to Virginia. I was actually commuting down to North Carolina, and I came back to Virginia. A friend of mine moved in from Texas with just the savings he had in his bank account. So he moved his wife and his child from where they were living in Texas to Virginia, and rented a house, and we started a company. And a couple weeks later, we were contracted by the Marine Corps to come back in and do live fire test and evaluation for small arms programs that were undergoing source selection at the time. And that just grew. That grew into weapons and optics. It grew into new equipment training. It grew into a staff that grew into a bigger staff and other contracts and opportunities both inside of the DoD and outside in the defense industry. And so we did that. I did that for a while, and then I was participating in some hunting activities with an organization that takes disabled veterans out hunting. Mm-hmm. And I won't betray the name of the organization, but essentially what was happening is a bunch of dudes get together at a hunting camp somewhere at an outfitter, and you go out and you hunt for the day, and then you come back and they give you some really good grub, and then they light a campfire, and then everybody sits by the campfire, and then they pass around a bottle of booze, and that's when I realized that there was a huge opportunity that was being missed here, and so. I've been sober for about 7 years now. I quit drinking about 7 years ago, and that's an important part of what's been, I think, what's led to my individual success particularly over the past few years. And I'll talk more about that later too. But over the years, I've been involved with a bunch of different veteran organizations, raising money for them, participating with them. Sitting on boards with some of them, and then so my wife and I had actually been raising money for Hope for the Warriors.
Now, is this the same bar wife?
Same, yeah, exact same one.
Okay.
This never changes, by the way.
Okay.
Yep, she's consistent throughout. That's another part of my success too.
Nice. I dubbed thee the bar wife. She'll love that. She'll love to hear that.
Well, I just had to confirm, because a lot of Marines start off with a starter wife, and I just had to clarify.
You know what? Yeah. Yeah, no, if you guys want to do another episode later on about marriage, like, sign me up. I'm happy to contribute to that one. So my wife and I had been raising money and using our bar and restaurant as a venue to raise money for this organization, Hope for the Warriors, for a number of years. And so my wife had decided her and I started growing our family. We have 6 children now.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And so the last 4 just came boom, boom, like one after the other. And so my wife was running a restaurant and a bar, 20 hours out of a day. And then we started having babies. So then she was running this thing 20 hours out of a day with a baby on her hip and then a baby on each hip. And eventually it just got to the point where we started having conversations at home about, hey, what are our priorities here? Is owning the restaurant a priority? Is raising a family a priority? I mean, we have all of the typical conversation about, gender roles and division of labor and all the nonsense, all of it. And eventually we decided we'd sell the bar. So we're in just get done closing on the sale of our bar. It's our last day. And Robin Kelleher, the CEO of Hope for the Warriors, sends a text message. She says, "Hey, I'd love to come down there and have lunch with you guys one last time." So she comes down. We're having lunch. And I'm basically using this as a bitch session. I'm complaining about these hunts that I've been going on with this other organization, and the fact that we have this great experience out hunting, and we come back to the lodge at the end of the night, and then everybody gets hammered. And as a sober guy sitting around the campfire trying to engage guys in conversation, I start to see some of the things that are going on inside of each of the individuals. And for me, I just saw that as an enormously wasted opportunity to connect with people and to really try to enter into what's going on with them and to help them arrive at some kind of a solution. So we finished lunch. I left and headed back to my office, and Robin called me and she said, "Hey, could you swing back by here real quick? I got something I want to ask you." So I swung back by the bar, and she said, "Hey, we've got this outdoor adventures program inside of Hope for the Warriors. It's ran by a retired Lieutenant Colonel, Marine, and he would actually like to retire. And so I'm wondering if you'd be interested in running this program." So that's really kind of how I got into working with a not-for-profit. I started out as a contractor, just running that program, taking service members and family members out hunting and fishing and stuff like that all across the country. And then because I had owned a business and grown a business, they were in the process of putting together a 3-year growth strategy. So I was asked to participate in that. Well, that turned into hey, we'd like to offer you a full-time job here as a senior director of a program suite. And then about 6 months into that, I was asked to take over as the chief operations officer for the organization and usher it through, this time of growth that we're in. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it definitely got me from high school to where we are right now today.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit and talk.
And there's all kinds of details in
between. all kinds of fun stuff in the middle.
Well, one of the details that I have to say is he's one of the few Lejeune Marines that I know that actually has had a boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Drank something different that day, huh?
Right. He drank something different that day because most of us have girls. So.
Yep. I tell you, it's a curse. Well, my first one was a girl. And so I definitely, I was like, I knew it. I knew I wasn't going to be able to, break the mold here. But next time we hit a boy out of the park. So followed by 2 more girls, mind you.
Yeah,
right. So it was close.
25%.
25% is better than 0%. So I'm just saying.
Not bad.
Not bad. So of the 6, what's the split?
4 girls, 2 boys. We have 2 older kids and then 4 younger ones. And our oldest daughter is out in California. Her husband's a jarhead. He's the supply chief out in 2-5 right now. And then our son is a grunt, and he's in 2-5. So those 2 yahoos are deployed currently
really,
together.
It's quite funny, right?
Yeah. My son's headed to Thailand as we speak. So we don't have to make any comments about that.
That's awesome.
My wife and I are just hoping we don't have any grandkids by the time the year's out.
Awesome. Yeah. So when you got out of the Corps, was that like a planned thing? You had your ETS date out and Now go ahead.
No, actually, that wasn't planned at all. As a matter of fact, I see guys today, and I'll connect with Marines that I served with years and years and years ago. And when they find out where I'm at right now, they go, whoa, like, you got out of the Marine Corps? Like, how did that happen? Because I was bent that I was going to be the next Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. I mean, I loved everything about the Marine Corps, everything about being a Marine. There was nothing else on this earth that I was designed for and or could even be good at. So yeah, getting out was not necessarily planned. It was something that happened, and we'll talk about that too. Is that, call it fate, call it providence, call it whatever you want. Things seem to happen for a reason, and I certainly wouldn't be here had I stayed in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm. So
it's weird how that happens.
Yeah. So when you got out,
yes.
so if you didn't get out under conditions of your own choosing, did you find that getting out more difficult or easier than you anticipated?
No. I think to clarify, my getting out of the Marine Corps was completely my decision.
Okay.
I could have stayed in and gone wherever I wanted, but I chose to get out of the Marine Corps, and I think for a lot of people, that's this like pivotal. It's a milestone in their life, right? Because whether you choose to get out on your own, or you get kicked out, or the Corps' downsizing, or the Army's getting smaller, or whatever the case may be, you go from everything is essentially provided for you mm-hmm. to nothing is, and that's a big change. For me, it wasn't so bad. I mean, I had done when I got to sniper school, there were two dudes that worked there. A guy named Jeff Schenner, and a guy named Nathan Hunt. And those two Marines made an impression on me because they were both exemplary guys. But more importantly, one of the things that they told me was, spend this time here wisely, make an impact, and network. Mm-hmm. So I took that to heart. And I spent my entire tour at Quantico training the finest piece of war fighting machinery, Marine snipers, and networking with people. So when I got out and literally walked into a job that had already been created for me. Mm-hmm. And it was, testing sniper equipment and right. training snipers. So it was, for me, the transition was relatively easy.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. Networking was a huge part of your success getting out. And you even were able to move very easily into a job essentially created for you, doing exactly more or less what you're doing when you're in. But that transition of actually getting out of the military and not having everything provided to you like it was in the Corps, and realizing that, wait a minute, all of these decisions that I'm making now, they're my decisions. And if I fail, it's my failure. If I succeed, it's my success. And a lot of veterans, when they get out of the military, whether it's planned or unplanned, whether it's an easy or difficult transition, they find that when they enter this quote unquote real world, it hits them all at one time, and they realize, this is, we're playing for keeps here. You know what I mean? I mean, you could do a lot of things in the military and screw up, but you're not getting shown your papers and shown the door, right? I mean, there might be corrective training or, Article 15 or whatever the case may be. But you really got to screw up in the military in order to get the boot. Out in the civilian world, a lot of times there's things like layoffs and all these other things that happen that they're outside of our control. That's scary for a lot of veterans.
Yeah, I'll be, I don't mean this disparagingly at all. So don't. I hope none of your listeners take this the wrong way. But this is the advice I give to my son, and this is advice that I give to any service member that I talk to that's getting ready to transition out, whether it's because they're choosing to, or they're not re-enlisting people into their MOS, or whatever the case may be. This is what I tell my son. Being a Marine is the easiest job you'll ever have. That's the truth. It's punctuated by very, very difficult, challenging times. No doubt. Zero doubt. But being a grunt in the Marine Corps, 90% of your time is spent sleeping. Let's be honest. Right. And then you're in the field and you're training. If you go to war, we're at war. And those things are extraordinarily arduous. I know, arduous and challenging. But this is the reality. And so I tell them, look, if you're going to get out, make sure of a couple of things. One, you have a good plan, and you have an even better backup plan. And two, that you have gotten everything out of your service, out of your time spent in uniform, everything that you possibly can. And by that, I mean schools, I mean leadership skills, managerial skills, grit, work ethic, all of those things are what you need to leave with, because those things are what will carry the day on the outside. Your point about how different it is in the quote unquote real world, but in the civilian world, in the capitalist environment that we live in, the reality is it's extraordinarily competitive and cutthroat. People don't share the same value set that you're indoctrinated into when you join the military. And so to come out and to work inside of a huge corporation or a small company or whatever the case may be, we have to understand, everything there is about the bottom line. And you either contribute to the bottom line by making things efficient and doing your job well, and you stay in that job because it is very, very competitive, or you don't contribute to the bottom line and you cost people money because you require more management and oversight, et cetera, and you go away. And that's the reality that people are kind of, I think in a lot of ways, hit upside the head with. And it sucks, but that's just how it is.
Right. And one of the things I'll have to say, in my experience, when I first started my career in the corporate world, I was just amazed at the lack of interest my employer had in my personal and or professional development. I think that was something that I took for granted when I was in the military. Granted, everyone had a good chief, everyone had a bad chief, but all in all, in my 10 years in the Army, for the most part, everyone at least gave a shit to some degree about my success. And at the very least, I knew exactly what I needed to do in order to progress forward. There was opportunities. There was for promotion. There was opportunities for schooling. There was opportunities for a lot of different developmental type things, and some of which were I was forced into, and a lot of them I volunteered for. But nonetheless, that developmental growth opportunities were abundant in the military. Then I get out and I start my corporate job. And I realized that, nobody's training me. Nobody's interested in my growth or my potential. And I started to feel undervalued. And then I realized, wait a minute, if no one else is going to take the interest in me, I need to find a way to take interest in myself and find those things on my own. Has that been your experience?
By and large, I'd say that's pretty accurate. You hit the nail on the head. Inside of this, in the military, your professional development is programmed into your rank structure, into your promotion, the promotion convention. So want to get promoted to sergeant? Attend these courses, dumbass, and then you're competitive for promotion. And so they've almost kind of systematically put those things in place so that regardless of who your leader is, he can only screw up so much. Right. You still have to hit all these wickets in order to be developed to some degree. And on the outside, a lot of companies don't. They maybe they don't see it as an enormous value to invest in their staff. Maybe they don't have the resources to do it. So you're right. You do have to take it on as an additional tasker for yourself. so that you're constantly seeking improvement. You're always trying to maintain, some kind of competitive edge over, the other people in the office, over your company versus another company. And so you absolutely have to, continuously improve yourself. I mean, personal and professional development. If listeners have been in the military before, you've heard of these, continuing actions, right? Camouflage, chow, hydration. In the Marine Corps, shaving your face, improving your position, weapons maintenance. Those are continuing actions. Those are things that go on day in, day out, no matter what else is happening. You've got to clean your rifle. You've got to shave your face. You've got to do this and that. And those are things that happen no matter what. And, professionally, outside, in the private sector, same thing. Personal, professional development. If it's not programmed into your company, if you're not fortunate enough to work in an organization that understands and sees the value in that and invests in that in its staff, then you need to go find it. For me, it's been, I've engaged with, executive coaches along the way. When I've moved into these C-level positions, in my own company, right? I was a grunt. I started a company. What the hell do I know about business? So
yeah.
There's a lot of things you got to learn along the way. And for me, the smart thing, just like, before we go in and we attack, a part of a city, or we conduct some kind of action somewhere in the world, what do? We gather intelligence, we gather information. And one of the best sources of information in a military operation is people on the ground. And so in a corporate environment, and one of your best sources of information, if you're an entrepreneur, is to go find other entrepreneurs that have been there and have made mistakes. And I remember sitting down with, presidents, CEOs of large firms who I was fortunate enough to, contract for, and say, hey, I would like, if you don't mind, this is going to be a little odd, but, I'd like you to mentor me. I'd like to learn some of the mistakes that you made in building this company so that I don't have to make the same mistakes as Nick, the new guy. Here in my own. And that paid enormous dividends.
Now, I mean, that's interesting that you say that. How receptive were those individuals when you approached them with that?
Incredibly. So I think what's amazing is that people that are, unless they're complete assholes, which there are those too, but I don't do business with them. But every time I've approached someone who I see as just being an elder, right? Someone who's been in business for a while, or someone that's older than me. I mean, even, so I own my company, right? But so I'm technically, a chief executive, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn something from a program manager inside of one of the companies that I support, because the guy's been there for 30 years and he's been doing this work forever. So every time that I've gone to somebody like that and said, hey, I'd like to learn, would you enlighten me? Would you teach me? Would you help me understand? 99.9% of the time, they are absolutely receptive to that. And they want, moreover, they leap at the opportunity, because who the hell come and asks them that?
Right.
Nobody.
Right? They're the boss. People avoid them like the plague.
Right.
But
stay under the radar.
When you go to them, yeah, exactly. Like, oh, here comes the boss, man. Everybody look busy.
I mean, to expand on your point
you
too.
To them and you go,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I was just expanding on your point. The nowadays education, when it comes to educating yourself, it's never been an easier time to do so. I mean, it's everywhere, frankly. I mean, you can read books. You can, I mean, are you still in school?
I do. Yeah, I still take college classes.
See, I mean, and that's one of those
I'm
things.
I'm constantly engaged in all these little things. Yep, these little small things. Courses that are given through my church. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take a course from them because there's something to be learned. And think, a key to success and a key to execution is, here's the thing. No one way of doing things works, period, all the time. Sometimes it works over here, sometimes it works over there. But by and large, you've got to have a broad base of knowledge so that you can apply different techniques, processes, procedures, modalities, methodologies to whatever the situation may be. And
there's no
you're not going
pill
to get
that
that
covers it everything. There's no pill or secret sauce that covers everything. And I think that's a good point.
And in all fairness, there's no MBA program that covers all of it either.
No, exactly.
So So, I think, there's a lot to be gleaned from engaging with leaders in business, in government, in any kind of institution, and just learning like how do I do this? I tell you, coming from a for-profit business, my own business, into a not-for-profit organization like Hope for the Warriors, it's entirely different, isn't it?
Totally different.
In the corporate world, what are we trying to do? We are trying to sell everything that we make. We're trying to improve our product. We're trying to improve our process. We're trying to improve our service. And then we're trying to sell the crap out of all that. And the more we can sell, the better, right? In a not-for-profit, it's just different. Like you're trying to get people to give you money, right? And so there are all kinds of all manner of ways to do that with with corporations, with individuals, by applying for grant money through governments and foundations, and it's an incredibly different environment. And then on top of that is the accounting side of it. At the end of the day, if I bring all kinds of money into my for-profit corporation, like, hey, all the owners have a great day at the end of the year, right? We cut ourselves big checks, everybody's happy, and we move on to the next year. We reinvest some of it into our company, and we just continue to grow. In the not-for-profit world, you have to know where every damn penny that comes into that place goes, and you have more importantly, you've got to control where it goes. So, because you're always worried about how much goes into your overhead and how much goes into your programs, because that's how you're scrutinized. And again, very, very cutthroat, competitive industry. So some things, some of the lessons that I learned as an 18-year-old in MCRD San Diego apply in the corporate world. Some things that I learned at MCRD apply in the for-profit world. Some apply in the not-for-profit world. And some of it doesn't apply at all. For example, I now lead an organization that's 90% women. Very different for me, right? Like I started a company to put gunslingers to work. Training Marines and special operations forces and how to kick in doors and shoot people in the face, right? So there's an entire culture, an entire lexicon, a vernacular that goes along with that kind of work that doesn't translate into the not-for-profit arena that I find myself in now, and has licensed clinical social workers as a large contingent of my staff. We don't look at the world the same way necessarily. So it's been there's definitely some differences. So
that's a good
lessons learned apply.
That's a good segue into. That's the reason this show is called Change Your Point of View, right? And it's for that very reason. It's because my mission in life is to educate veterans and help them see things from a different perspective, because everyone can be in the same, firefight. Let's bring this out on the battlefield in terms everybody understands. You could be in a firefight, the exact same firefight, but yet your experience in that battle from the turret of one Humvee versus somebody that's pinned down inside of a garage that's 2 blocks over. Like, it's the same battle, but yet the experience that you're going to have coming out of that is going to be vastly different. And it's the same when you are out of the military and you're navigating the civilian sector, in that, an interview is an interview, but every interview you go to is going to be different. Every hiring manager is going to be different. Every position is going to be different. There is no one size fits all. One way is going to work for everyone. And oftentimes it forces the veteran to get out of their own head, to get out of their own expectations of what right looks like, and accept that there are alternative beliefs. There are alternative ways of doing things that you would not have considered. And that's something that many veterans struggle with when they get out, because they're so used to things being so, regimented, indoctrinated. There's, like you said, there's these things that these veterans, when they're in the military, are all expected to do without fail. And then you get out and you realize, well, I still have to do that, but there's 6 different ways of doing that. And a lot of people just vapor lock and they don't know how to get past that.
Yeah, I think you're very right. I think that's, it is. I just read an article very recently. The title of it was, "That's great, you're a veteran. Here's 9 reasons why I won't hire you into my company." Mm. And I thought, what pompous ass wrote this article initially? And then I read the article and I realized, this individual actually has a point here, and that is that it was to your point, is that you have to stop thinking that just because you spent X amount of time in the military that necessarily just translates directly over into some vice president level position somewhere, right? Like, I was a sergeant major in a battalion, 1,200 Marines.
I think that's the biggest
2,000.
misconception.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Is that you just waltz in over here as
they're waiting off base to hand me my freaking title.
Yeah, and that's just not how it is. And I think so. There's 2 sides to this thing, and I don't hope we don't get off track here too much. But there's 2 sides to this, I think, for transitioning veterans. Number one, there are corporations out here in the private sector that want to hire veterans. They want to do it for a litany of reasons. Mm-hmm. Chief among them, one, veterans do have a set of abilities, characteristics that they want in their companies. They want people who are self-starters and who can take initiative and who are understand accountability, individual personal accountability, and how that contributes to their larger corporate structure. They're patriotic, right? And it sells. And let's be honest about all of those things, right? Everybody wants to be able to put on their website that they're hiring veterans because, let's face it, America likes to see that you're hiring veterans. But there's a disconnect, with corporations too, right? They don't really know, like, who the hell are these people that we're getting? How do we transition them into our organization well, understanding that there are cultural differences here that we're going to have to, there's a cultural gap we're going to have to bridge. The other side of that is what we're talking about here too, is that veterans have to understand, they got to get it in their head that this world does not need to bend to your will all the time. It doesn't have to bend over backwards for you. It's the fact that people are doing it is nice, and we need to understand that and be grateful and gracious for it. But we have to understand that you can't walk into your job on day one and treat everyone like you treated everyone in your squad, right? Or lead everyone the way you led your fire team or sniper team or whatever the case may be, because we have to understand the cultural difference as well. And so, that's that is one of the the knowledge barriers that exists both on the corporate side and on the veteran side of the house, in terms of how do we get into meaningful work on the outside and then from corporations, is how do we bring all of those wonderful attributes that veterans have because they've been trained in them and indoctrinated with them. How do we bring that into our corporation in a way that doesn't burn the house down, so to speak?
Right. Yeah, and it's a very delicate. I mean, you're right. It's a very delicate position because companies, let's face it, not every company is doing it for the right reasons, but the companies that they're truly interested in hiring veterans because they've got an affinity for veterans and they want to do the right thing. But you're right. If they're doing their due diligence, they want to make sure that they're introducing those veterans into their culture in a way that makes sense, not only to the veteran, but to the employees, the existing employees that are already there. And that's not always easily done. It's not always done very well. I'll just speak from my own experience that some companies fall flat when it comes to that. Sometimes they go overboard and they overcompensate to be accommodating to the veteran at the expense of their existing employees. And then in some cases, it's the other way around. So we can kind of, we can talk about this forever. But one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is the idea of, and we get into, personal and professional development. And there's so many, like Bennett says, there's so many things out there nowadays. And you see a lot of people taking advantage of education. They take advantage of their Montgomery GI Bill or post 9/11. They get educated. They're listening to podcasts. They're reading books. They're learning. And they just learn and learn and learn and learn. And they just keep on learning because they're scared to pull the trigger and to actually turn that into something that's executable. They fail to execute. Right. So, like, what recommendations do you have for veterans out there that are, a lot of guys are like, oh man, I just need one more class or one more something, or, the time's not right yet. Right. And it's like, I used to tell my guys, there's never a good time to have a kid, right? You've got 6 of them. There's never a good time to have a kid. You just do it and you figure it out. Why do veterans struggle so much? And I say veterans. I'm sure there's more than just veterans out there that struggle with this whole idea. But in your opinion, why do veterans struggle with this idea of execution?
I think here's where I think the disconnect happens. I don't think necessarily that veterans struggle with execution so much as they struggle with formulating the plan that they're going to execute.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of where it happens is, so basically everything that we do in the military, and so this is very general, by the way. I'm just saying that everyone is like this, but by and large, I think everything that we do inside of the military is all prepackaged and planned, right? You got a process for this, you got a process for that. Here's how you plan, an amphibious landing. Here's how you do an airborne insertion. This is how you do it. Mm-hmm. And so there's a plan that everyone goes through, and it's very regimented and very stepped, and all the boxes have to be checked before the light goes green inside of the bird and we all jump out of it. And so the execution piece, as a service member, as a veteran, like, you're used to doing that. You're used to executing. The light turns green, you jump out of the bird, and you go about the plan, right? The building of the plan on the outside is like, it's not stepped. There's no checklist. You have to create all of that. You have to start on your own and come up with it. Conceive you have to reverse plan all the way back to right now. Mm-hmm. So, landing a contract may be your objective because you just started a company. And you want to get a government contract. Well, there are umpteen thousand things that have to happen between now and landing that contract. Setting yourself up in, this the SAM system, getting yourself a GSA contract or a Seaport contract or whatever. All of these things are having the right kind of accounting. You can't have cash-based, got to have cost-based accounting. And it's a flurry of variables. Mm-hmm. And I think what we struggle with is, like, how do I know which of these things I need to account for so that I can actually get to my objective? Because one thing we don't want to do, and is basically seared into who we are as people, is fail. Right. One thing we don't ever want to do is fail. because we take failure so incredibly personally. And so let me go back to failing sniper school the first time, and just so I could teach you, so I could show you what that taught me. So I went to sniper school in Quantico in like 1999 or 2000. I don't remember what year it was, but I made it through into the second phase of sniper school, and then I got dropped for stalking, which is pretty typical. It's where most of the attrition in that school comes from. And so I left and I went back to my platoon, having failed out of sniper school. Now, it's not uncommon to fail, but I went back and I went, you know what? I didn't even want to come to this damn platoon. My platoon commander from the line told me to come over here. I just wanted to be a squad leader. Let me go back to my rifle company. And so I went to my platoon commander after I failed out of sniper school the first time. And I said, hey, sir, listen, just put me back in the line. Like, I was great there. I'd be a squad leader. That's what I wanted to do, but my platoon commander told me, no, you're taking the induct and you're going to the sniper platoon. So that's why I'm here. I never wanted to be here, blah, 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 blah. And he just looked at me and he said, or my platoon sergeant at the time, Staff Sergeant Mike Brown, looked at me and he just said, shut the fuck up and go back to the barracks. And so I did. And what happened was I had to wallow in that failure. I had to feel it every day. I had to face my peers, people that, and they knew that I had failed, right? And so I had to understand what it meant to fail. And I learned two things. One, it didn't kill me. And two, I fucking hated it. I hated failing. I hated everything about it. And so when I went back to sniper school and graduated, it was easy because I poured myself into it. And we have to kind of take that lesson. For those vets that might be listening to this right now, take that lesson. Fail. It's okay. Failure is part of growth. You got to do it. A 70% solution right now is better than a 100% solution after 2 more years of college and a master's program, maybe. And that's probably not even it's probably like an 80% solution after all of that. So my suggestion is make a plan and execute it. Get out there and do it. And you know what? You're going to stumble along the way. You're going to you along the way. You can't shy away from the failure, because that's what separates companies and individuals that go places from companies and individuals that go away. And it is the ones that are just tenacious about achieving the objective. And so as long as you keep that in at the forefront of your mind and that remains your focus, it's, you're going to fail. I fail every day. Like I tell you, ask anyone on, our 50 plus person staff at Hope for the Warriors if Sharon responds to every email that comes in. I don't. And I miss things a lot. There's a lot going on.
Why isn't that guy Chris responding to me?
Yeah, he never gets back to me right away. And it's not because I don't value what they do or anything like that. It's literally because there is a goal, there is a priority, and I'm focused on that priority. And so I can accept, a little bit of failure here and a little bit of and failure from the staff and all. We're all going to fail. But look, at the end of the day, we've got to move the ball 5 yards down the field.
That's right.
That's all we got to do. So we focus on that. Take the injury, we take the loss of yardage here and there. But if we get there, we got a first down. Absolutely. And now we can move. Now we can focus on the next yard. So it's really, look at your objective in like achievable chunks. I could go all down the, build a POA&M, a program of action and milestones and blah, 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 and make these increments. Who cares about all that stuff? Like here, just stay focused on your objective, right? And understand you will fail along the way. That's okay. Learn from it, fix whatever it is that you failed, and just keep driving.
That's right.
See, I think that's a huge point. Learning and fixing the failure and actually admitting and knowing that when you fail, taking responsibility for it and learning from it. I think that's a huge point. that sometimes is lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when
you got to learn. You've got to be able to learn from it. Yeah.
I remember when I used to coach my son's football team. We're talking junior high, so I don't know, what are you then?
It was like
12,
10.
12,
That was
10.
like 12 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was, my son's 21, so it was a little bit ago. And I remember when we were trying to teach I helped coach even before when he was playing pee-wee football, whatever it was. And when you're trying to instill the totality of the game of football in a young player, you can't teach them everything from end zone to end zone and from sideline to sideline. That's a huge field. That's a huge game. There's a lot of moving pieces, moving parts,
Mm-hmm.
Offense, defense. And so in some of the things I learned, I was an assistant coach, and one of the greatest men that made a huge impact in my life was the head coach. And he used to pull the boys together in this this circle. And this is how he taught them the game. He said, boys, you only have to worry about moving that ball 3 yards every down. Every down. Every time you have that ball, you just need 3 yards. Because if you have 4 downs and you move the ball 3 yards every down, then you're going to achieve a first down every drive until finally you're in the end zone and you put points on the score. But trying to focus on putting points on the score, you lose sight of those 3 yards you need. You only need those 3 yards. That's all you need to focus on. And sometimes when you lose sight of that, like you're talking about doing things incrementally, breaking things down, reverse engineering a plan. I think that's really when we're talking about execution or the fear of execution, I really think it's because they see the scoreboard up there on the Megatron, and they're just trying to put points on the board. And they don't realize that all they really need to be focusing on is moving the ball 3 yards. And so I really do appreciate that story that you shared about failing. And not just failing, but learning to feel it, to feel what it feels like to fail and accept it. And to let it into yourself and let it be a teachable moment. I think that's a lesson in itself. Because like you said, we all fail. But how many times do we sit back and say, you know what? Let me just feel this failure for a minute.
Jesus, so much.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time, Chris. I do want to quickly ask. So for the listening audience out there, describe for us Hope for the Warriors and what it is you do.
Okay. So Hope for the Warriors is a national 501c3 not-for-profit. We provide services to post 9/11 service members, active duty veterans, their families, and Gold Star families. We have 3 direct service pillars, and those are sports and rec, transition services, and clinical health and wellness. And so Hope for the Warriors provides comprehensive case management to every service member who comes into the organization. And we program, refer into our own direct services for those services that a client may need. And then we also have partner organizations all over the country that cover down on other aspects of the individual. So, for example, we don't have any spiritual or religious programming inside of Hope, but we partner with organizations externally that have that as a focus. So we understand everybody that comes in the door, they have all these things that make them tick, right? They have all these things that contribute to their overall well-being, and we focus on the whole person. So those things that we have programming for, we leverage resources and provide that programming. And for those parts of the individual that we don't cover down on, like the spiritual aspect, we make the referral out to another organization who does just that. But I can give you just real quick rundown on our programs.
Sure.
Inside of the clinical health and wellness pillar, this is where our licensed clinical social workers work. We have a MSW internship program. So we sit right now. I think we have six or eight MSW interns that are being supervised by our clinicians and who are pursuing their Master's of Social Work degree, that are doing case management. They're doing supervised case management, referrals, resource research, et cetera, for clients that we have. We have a family resiliency programming. We have spouse and caregiver workshops, and our clinicians will also do therapy. They'll actually do direct therapy where it's warranted for them to do that. It's an incredible group of people, and the work that they do, the discipline of case management that they bring to the organization is really a differentiator as far as I'm concerned. In the sports and recreation pillar, we have our nationwide run series called Run for the Warriors. We're doing 7 or 8 big marquee runs across the country. This year we've got our team, Hope for the Warriors, which participates in things like Go Rucks, New York City Half Marathon, the Marine Corps Marathon, other team-based, team-type activities. And then we have our Outdoor Adventures program, which we spoke about earlier. That's our our guided hunting and fishing, backpacking, kayaking. That's what gets done inside of Outdoor Adventures. And then we have our transition services pillar, and transition services has obviously, just like it sounds, we're focused primarily in there on career transition, education transition, and inside of there we have a financial assistance program. We've got a scholarship program that is specific to spouses and caregivers. One of the things that I think is so fantastic about this organization is its focus on the family. So it's not just about veterans, and nothing against veterans, but the thing is that, look, the veterans attached to is part of a unit, and that unit by and large is a family. And so much of what goes into of service members' growth, their recovery, their transition, so much of what goes into making those things successful is their family. And the family is so often neglected. There's
true.
Yep, there's no government programming or funding that really, really focuses on it. There is some, so I don't mean to, disparage the government so much, but
it's far and few in between.
Yeah, it's anemic, right? And so we understand. Look, this organization was started by 2 Marine families that found themselves in the midst of what happens to you when your service member gets injured. And then on top of that, they were down at Camp Lejeune, and this happened in 2005, 2006, when, look, we were in the height of Iraq and Afghanistan, and wounded Marines and sailors were coming back to Lejeune in droves. There was no infrastructure to support them. There was no infrastructure to support their families. General Amos was down there at the time, and they were struggling to figure out what the hell they were going to do. And so these 2 Marine wives said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna start an organization that just comes up alongside these families and these Marines and sailors, and just puts our arm around them somehow, some way." Didn't really know. And so here you go, right? This is an enormous problem, and this is a very ambiguous answer. And this is what they did. And then as they moved forward, they failed. They tried things, they didn't work. They tried other things, they did work. And we just use that as a model. So just it's a fantastic organization. It's got a wonderful, wonderful group of well-intentioned Americans who work there day in and day out, and all they want to do is make someone's life better.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a simple mission for them to have every single day, and it's enormously humbling to be part of a team that leads them to that every single day.
It's kind of an organization that revolves around execution.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It really
just to bring it all around.
It really does. I mean, when those two helicopters collided with one another off the coast of Hawaii last year, we got, I couldn't even tell you how we got brought into it. Some high level folks in the media who knew about us or whatever made a phone call, and the next day we were executing. We made a plan. We made contact with people. We gathered information. We pooled some resources. We put people in charge, and they executed. And we got families to Hawaii so that they could be there during the search, and we made sure that they were supported on the ground when they got there. I mean, here's an example, right? A family is flying to Hawaii, and they've kind of been told that the media is already waiting for them, and they don't want to talk to the media right now. There's a very tumultuous time for them. It's very sensitive. So what do we do? Well, I know some former Marines there, happen to be in a motorcycle club. I'll have the motorcycle club meet the family at the airport and escort them out. And I guarantee you, the media won't come within a mile.
Pretty sure the media is not coming near them.
Yeah, exactly. So look, is that textbook? Nope. But it's what we needed to do to get the job done, and that's what we did. Yeah, it works.
That's right, man. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the show. Folks, you're listening to Chris Sharon, the Chief Operations Officer for Hope for the Warriors, and you can find more about that by heading over to hopeforthewarriors.org. Chris, where can people find out more about you, or that would like to connect with you and or your organization?
Obviously, you can go to our website, hopeforthewarriors.org. You can send an email through our contact us page. It'll make its way to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I get on Facebook every once in a while. I try to stay off social media as much as possible. Having a pile of kids at home, it's easy to be distracted by who hates Donald Trump or whatever today. So, but yeah, there's I'd be happy to send you all my contact information, so folks that contact you through the show can you can get them my way. The other thing too is, and it's real quick, is I get a lot of phone calls in the middle of the night from people that just know who I am and what I do and where I work and my background. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a veteran. He's been in combat. He runs an organization or is part of an organization that can help my buddy who's over here in a really, really bad way right now. And so through a whole bunch of different channels, I get phone calls from people. And so, I share that because I encourage people, look, if you know somebody, they need some help, they're hurting, you don't know how to get to them, don't wait. Connect them to contact you guys at the show, get them my contact information. I'll call people. I mean, my wife is like, I don't know how you do it. You stay up all night, talking to somebody out in Colorado. But at the end of the day, like, that's what that dude needs. He just needs somebody to talk to him that understands him.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty hardcore network.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It is incredible to be. And I tell you what, like, that's one of the most rewarding things, not just in this work, but just in my life in general, is being able to be a part of a community of Americans that don't know each other from Adam. But because we have this shared history, we'll give anything. We'll move heaven and earth to help one another.
Yep.
So yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the show. I know you're a busy guy, and you just were able to give up some of your precious time to be with the listeners of Change Your POV podcast. I do appreciate it. And folks, you can find all of the links to everything we talked about tonight over at the show notes page for this episode at changeyourpov.com/episode 168. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. Don't want to miss any of it. Come be a part of our community over at Change Your POV Squad Facebook group. Until next time.